rice upstairs, and hopefully by the time I leave it started.
So that does work, putting phones and stuff in rice. I'm just saying, does it work?
It's a good way to get moisture out.
It is.
Good morning, Chair Ballendroff, members Garrett and Holmes, staff and guests. The lobbies are open and the recording has begun.
Thank you, Gretchen. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Washington State Liquor and Cannabis Board meeting for Wednesday, June 4th. I'll now convene our meeting by call to order. First item on the agenda is approval of past minute meetings. And since these are all from 2023, I guess I'm looking for a motion from Board Member Garrett to approve those minute meetings.
I move that we approve the meetings as listed on the agenda.
All right, thank you. And I second that, so moved. The next agenda item is conditional delegation of authority, and I went into great detail about this conditional delegation of authority in our board caucus meeting yesterday. But essentially, I'm looking for a motion to give the rules team, the director, the conditional delegation of authority to allow the rules team to move forward under two specific circumstances relating to CR 101s. And that is when we have previously accepted a new rule petition. And the second is when there's been legislation that's been passed by the legislature and signed by the governor. Those are the only two circumstances. All other requests would come to the board for approval. So with that, I'm looking for a motion granting the conditional delegation of authority to the director of the LCB under those two circumstances for CR 101s. Do I have a motion?
Yes, this is Pete. I move that we grant the conditional delegation of authority, the two conditions as you described, rather than me repeating all of that.
Thank you. Can I have a second?
This is Ollie, I second.
All right, and I concur, so moved. All right, moving right along, we've got our social equity registration window presentation this morning. So good morning.
Good morning, Chair Ballendroff, members Garrett and Holmes. I am Sarah Worley, and I'm the Cannabis Social Equity Case Manager. I think I have there we go.
Welcome, Sarah. I'm sorry I didn't say your name earlier.
That's
I just
okay.
realized that, so welcome, Sarah.
So today I just want to give you a brief update on the social equity program and what's currently going on. You can go to the next slide, please. Alrighty, so as of January this year, we have 7 social equity licenses who are operating their cannabis business after eligibility in September of 2023. There are 2 licenses that were title certificates. They were able to reinstate and relocate under the social equity program from a city or a town that had a ban or moratorium. We have 32 pending social equity applicants still in process to secure a license and 3 title certificate holders who have not yet relocated. Next slide, please. As announced, the window for the registration is now open. It opened on Monday, June 2nd, and it will be open for 30 days, which will be closing July 1st. The legislation allowed us up to 52 additional cannabis retail licenses for social equity. 17 existing licenses have been returned to LCB, so a total of 69 cannabis retail licenses are now available. People who are interested must register through the LCB portal, which you can find on our front page of the LCB website or on our social equity webpage. A SAW or Secure Access Washington or LCB portal account is not required to register for the program. Also keep in mind that this process is different from the last window. The public does not have to apply through Business Licensing Services, Department of Revenue like last time. Shown on the slide here, part of the registration, it's very minimal information that is required. It is your name, address, contact email, phone, as well as your date of birth. The social security number and middle name is optional. After you've registered through the portal, registrants will get an email containing a registration or case number. They're 2 of the same. And you'll need to keep this for future use. If you have any questions about registering, there's a great user guide that's in our portal resources, or you can also find that on our social equity page. You can also email the licensing social equity team if you have questions. Next page. As a reminder, if you have multiple people make up the 51 majority of your business, only one person will need to register, but all people of that 51% will need to meet 2 of the 4 qualifications. Please do not register more than once. Only the first registration received will be scored for qualifications. After the window closes on July 1st, the Liquor and Cannabis Board will send this list of all registrants to our third-party contractor, who is AltaPoint Consulting. AltaPoint Consulting will reach out to the registrants by email with information on how to create an account on their site and submit their documentations. When you register, make sure that you have entered your correct email address, because that is how AltaPoint will be contacting you, and we want to make sure that they can get to you. Next slide, please. After you've registered, keep in mind that information will not go to AltaPoint until after we've closed that window. But while you're waiting for that time to lapse, please visit our website. We have some great educational videos. Continue to stay up to date with our blog. We have great FAQ page, and you also have that DIA map. You can begin to prepare your supporting documentation. There is a video on that. You can also go to the AltaPoint website. They have some tutorial videos to get you prepared for when the time comes that they've contacted you to set up. They've got tutorials on how you'll be setting up their platform and such. In closing, the registration window as of this morning, we had 182 registrants so far. Thank you. Any questions?
You just answered that one. I'll scratch
I was
that
gonna
one.
ask
I made sure I checked right before I came down here too, just to say it changed since I checked at 9 o'clock this morning.
Right. Going back to the slide that showed the pending, does that include the ones that have opened under social equity?
Yeah, so we have 7. I don't know if you go back to that page, the one on the left, and I can provide it later on if necessary, has the 7 that were of the social equity, shows the 32 that are pending, and then the right on the light, and the graph on the right were the title certificate ones that were reinstated under the program. So it has.
So when we say pending, we mean open?
Pending, we mean they're not open. Licensed, so we have 7 that are licensed, 32 that are still pending to find locations.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So 32 pending and then 7 are open.
Correct.
Okay.
Plus 2 more of title certificates, so a
Right.
total of 9.
9, right. Okay. Okay.
Great. Sarah, thank you so much.
Thank
You did
you.
a great job this morning. I really appreciate it. And just like as I did yesterday in the caucus meeting, want to acknowledge the team for your work, Board Member Garrett for your work in this. I have to say that I'm really proud of the work that we're doing in social equity, and nice to see us incorporate feedback from round 1 into round 2. And it's very clear that we listened to that and that the process was improved as a result. So thanks, everybody. Board Member Holmes, any comments or questions?
No, I'm not sure that I completely understand the difference between open and pending, but I'll go back and review the materials.
Yeah, why don't we go ahead and clarify that?
Right. Go back to that slide.
I don't think we can open it.
Oh,
I'll try again.
Okay.
Okay. So we have a total of, with them together, 9 licensees that have been approved and are open and operating. So they've got their storefront and they're conducting business. And then we have a total of 32.
2.
Yeah, page 2 up with the graphs.
One more.
This.
There you go.
Yep.
Yeah.
There we go. And we have 32 who are still pending, meaning they're still working with their licensing specialists. They have not secured a location to open their storefront.
And I think what's confusing because the heading says pending applications.
Oh, yep.
It kind of, because I had the question, you answered what I thought was never put out there. And it is
Yes.
saying open and the blue is pending.
Yes.
Right.
Did that answer your question, Board Member Holmes?
Great.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, we are ready to move on to our next agenda item, which is rulemaking timelines for all industries. And so we've got Kevin here, our policy and rules manager, for an update. So Kevin, I'll turn it over to you.
All right. Good morning, Chair Bollendroff and board members Garrett and Holmes. For our June rules update, we're starting out this month with 5 active rules projects. And we'll be requesting approval to file CR 101s to initiate 2 more rules projects today for cannabis license distance measuring and cannabis batch tracking. as well as a CR 102 proposal for the acceptable forms of ID rule. Then at our next scheduled board meeting on June 18th, we'll be requesting approval for a CR 101 to begin rulemaking to implement House Bill 1602 on contract kitchens. With the delegation of approval, we'll just be announcing that rather than presenting that. And then we'll be moving forward with the CR 102 rule proposal for the seasonal hours rule and a CR 103 rule adoption for minors on non-retail cannabis premises. Looking beyond this month, we plan to file 7 more CR 101s throughout July and August to initiate Senate Bill 5403 on cannabis retail agreements, the petition-driven R&D rulemaking, and 5 remaining petition requests that we accepted in some cases well over a year ago. And finally, we plan to request approval for a CR 105 expedited rulemaking in August or possibly September to implement the 3 remaining legislative bills that require rulemaking, and that would be 1636, 1698, and 5786. So looking at our current rules, as mentioned, Jeff will be presenting the CR 102 proposal on the acceptable forms of ID rule following my update, with a public comment period to follow, culminating with the public hearing on August 14th. If all goes as planned, we'll be able to adopt the rule in September and have the rule officially on the books in October. Then we have the minors on non-retail cannabis premises, for which we'll be holding the public hearing on the supplemental rule proposal tomorrow at 10 a.m. And the public comment period, which has been ongoing for a couple of weeks now, will close at midnight. Anyone interested in testifying can still register today at publichearings@lcb.wa.gov. And provided that no substantive feedback, no substantive changes are necessary in response to the feedback that we receive, we will then seek approval to file the CR 103 adoption at our next board meeting on June 18th, and the rule will take effect 30 days later. Next up, the pre-proposal stakeholder engagement phase for the seasonal hours for beer and wine licensees has completed. We have only received favorable feedback and do not anticipate any significant issues, so Jeff plans to present the CR 102 for approval at our next board meeting on the 18th. Moving on to retail alcohol product placement. We continue to meet with stakeholders representing various interests throughout May, and last week held our final scheduled stakeholder meeting of this phase with the Washington Distillers Guild. The meetings with industry representatives in particular have been very productive, and we plan to incorporate much of the feedback we've received as we develop the next draft. We will likely be in a position to share an updated draft with stakeholders sometime in July, followed by additional opportunities for stakeholder engagement before we move to the CR 102 phase in late summer or early fall. And last, but certainly not least, we filed the CR 101 on May 7th for the expanded outdoor alcohol service 1515 rule. And since that time, a project team comprised of representatives across the agency has been assembled. Preliminary drafting has begun, and we had our first stakeholder meeting with the Washington Hospitality Association just a couple of days ago that went really well. We are well positioned to file a CR 102 rule proposal before the summer ends and adopt a rule by the end of the year. And as I mentioned in caucus yesterday, implementing this legislation is going to be a relatively heavy lift for the rules team and the agency as a whole. But Daniel Jacobs in particular has done an exceptional job with his analysis and project management on this to get us started on the right foot. Also, our licensing, enforcement, and finance staff have really hit the ground running too. So kudos to Daniel and everybody involved in that project for getting us started out strong. Moving on to petitions. For the first time in a while, we have no active petitions. Of course, as previously discussed, we are working to file CR 101s throughout the next couple of months to at least begin to clear the backlog of pending petition-driven rulemaking projects that we've already agreed to take on. And then just a couple of other miscellaneous items. We are routinely meeting with our counterparts at the Department of Health regarding the medical cannabis product compliance rulemaking to ensure that there's consistency and alignment between agencies on that one. DOH has conveyed that the CR 102 proposal likely won't be released until sometime this fall. And then we're also keeping in touch with the folks at DOH and the Washington State Department of Agriculture, and have apprised them of our forthcoming R&D rulemaking so that representatives of those agencies will be prepared to provide feedback to ensure alignment there as well. So that's all I've got. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Kevin. Any questions?
No.
Seeing no questions, thank you very much for your work. You've got a heavy workload ahead of you, and we appreciate all the work of the rules team to carry this workload. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move right into our next item, which is general rulemaking. And first up, we have Jeff, who's going to provide us an update on CR 102 for acceptable forms of identification. So Jeff, you're up next.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Vollendroff and board members Garrett and Holmes. This morning, I would like to present a CR 102 package regarding the sales or regarding the rules about the acceptable forms of identification that liquor licensees may use to verify a customer's age and eligibility to purchase alcohol, which is in WAC 314-11-025, and the companion rule for cannabis regarding the forms of identification that customers may use to enter a cannabis retail premises and purchase cannabis. And that rule is WAC 314-55-150. For background on this rulemaking, in April 2023, the board accepted a petition to add the federal global entry card to the list of acceptable forms of identification that liquor licensees may use to verify a person's age for eligibility to purchase alcohol. In July 2023, the board also accepted parts of a different rulemaking petition requesting removal of outdated references in WAC to RCW 6616-040 from 3 sections in Chapter 314 WAC, or Title 314 WAC. Because both petitions addressed acceptable forms of identification regarding sale, service, possession, and consumption of alcohol, it made sense to combine these two petitions into a single rulemaking project to address the issues. In addition, the similar requirements in cannabis rules in WAC 314-55-150 had not been revised since the rules were created back around 2013. This rulemaking project addresses acceptable forms of identification for both alcohol and cannabis customers. The proposed amendments to the existing rules include removing references to the RCW from those 3 WAC sections. And the other amendment is the addition of 2 forms of identification to verify a person's age for alcohol purchases in WAC 314-11-025 and for cannabis in 314-55-150. These 2 forms of identification are the Global Entry Card, which is a federal identification, and also the Federal Permanent Resident Card, which is commonly known as a green card. If approved today, the public hearing on these proposed rules will be scheduled for August 14th, 2025. And if all goes as expected, we would plan to bring a CR 103 for approval at the September 10th board meeting. Thank you, and can I answer any questions?
Thank you, Jeff. Any questions?
No questions.
Seeing no questions, do I have a motion to approve the CR 102 for acceptable forms of identification?
I move that we approve the CR 102 for acceptable form of identification.
Second.
All right, so moved. All right, Jeff, you are up again for our next agenda item, which is cannabis related, and I'll turn it over to you for batch tracking of cannabis plants.
Thank you. Good morning again, Chair Vollendroff and board members Garrett and Holmes. This morning, I am also presenting a CR 101 pre-proposal package to begin rulemaking to consider some requested changes to cannabis rules in WAC 314-55-083 regarding the batch tracking requirements for cannabis plants. In October 2023, the board accepted a petition for rulemaking from a member of the public who requested amendments to part of this rule, subsection 4F. This current rule requires each cannabis plant that has grown to a height of 8 inches tall or 8 inches wide to be physically tagged with a marker that provides a unique identifier for the plant that can be and must be tracked individually by the producer of the plant, the cannabis licensee. The rulemaking petition accepted in 2023 requested updates to that portion of the rule that would allow cannabis plants larger than 8 inches tall or wide that are of the same strain and are grown in the same growth stage to be tracked in a batch as they are when they are smaller plants instead of tracked individually as the current rule requires. The informal comment period on this CR 101 will be open until July 17th, 2025, and stakeholder meetings will be planned for later in the year or in 2026, depending on the high volumes of rulemaking that we have this summer and fall. So that's all I have for this 101, and I am happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Jeff. I have one question. Do we
Sure.
know what the industry standard is in terms of batch tracking of cannabis plants? Do we have any idea?
You
I'm
know,
talking national.
yeah. Thank you for the question. I believe that some other states, I believe that California and Colorado may allow for that currently. And there is some little bit of discrepancy in our rule. One of the rules regarding tracking describes plants as being over 12 inches tall as requiring tagging. So that's a question that I'm not sure about how the other states approach this, but we'll be reaching out and seeing how it's handled across the industry.
Great, thank you. Any other questions from board members? Seeing no questions, thank you very much. Do I have a motion to approve the CR 101 for batch tracking of cannabis plants?
This is Pete. I move approval of the CR 101 regarding batch tracking.
This is Ali, I second.
All right, so moved. Thank you very much, Jeff. Appreciate it. All right, we'll move to our final agenda item, which is a presentation from Denise on asking for CR 101 approval for cannabis license distance. So Denise, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, good morning, Chair Volendroff and Board Member Garrett and Holmes. On behalf of the Director's Office, I'm requesting approval today of a CR 101 pre-proposal package to initiate rulemaking to amend WAC 314-55050 subsection 2 related to how the 1,000-foot buffer distance is measured between a licensed cannabis premises and restricted entities such as schools. As you are aware, cannabis applicants and licensees have indicated that finding a location for a cannabis business is difficult, due in part to minimum distance requirements between a licensed premises and restricted entities such as schools, playgrounds, childcare centers, etc. An LCB budget proviso within existing funding included examining, among other things, the impact of laws and rules on cannabis licensees, specifically in the Cannabis Social Equity Program, with respect to permissible locations for the siting of licensed cannabis businesses, including distance restrictions in RCW 6950-331 subsection 8. Under this RCW, licensed cannabis premises may not be within 1,000 feet of the perimeter of the grounds of certain restrictive facilities, including elementary or secondary schools, playgrounds, childcare centers, public parks, and libraries. Cities, counties, and towns may enact ordinances to permit licensed premises within the 1,000 feet, but not less than 100 feet of these types of facilities, with the exception of around schools and playgrounds. Currently under WAC 314-55050 subsection 2, this 1,000-foot distance must be measured as the shortest straight line distance from the property line of the proposed building or business location to the property line of the restricted entity. Liquor rules, in contrast, reference statute, which requires 500 feet between a licensed liquor premises and a school, be measured along the most direct route over or across established public walks, streets, or other public passageways from the main entrance of the school to the nearest public entrance of the premises. Redefining how the 1,000-foot buffer is measured for cannabis businesses, such as measuring along walking or driving paths, could provide licensees more options for locating a cannabis business and could also better align with how these buffer distances are measured in liquor rules currently. The impact of such changes would depend on the configuration of walking paths and roadways in a particular area. If the CR 101 is approved, the informal comment period begins and will be open until July 4th. We would plan to conduct stakeholder engagement in July and present a CR 102 with proposed rule language at the August 13th board meeting. And that would put the public hearing on September 25th. Assuming the public hearing doesn't identify a need to substantially change the rule language, we would ask to file the final rules at the October 8th board meeting, and the rules would become effective on November 8th. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Denise. Makes a lot of sense to me. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, I'm looking for a board motion to approve the CR 101 for cannabis license distance.
I move we approve the CR 101 for cannabis license distance.
I second.
All right, so moved. All right, that concludes our agenda for today. So I will go ahead and adjourn our meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
See you, Pete.